All right, Legionnaires, welcome to the first of 3 videos covering the Rift's conversion book 2, Pantheons of the Megaverse. In this video, we're going to talk about what gods are, how they work, and then we can move on to the racial character classes that spawn because of them, and then how to use them in your campaign. But today, we're just talking about what gods are, how you define them, how do they interact with each other, and a little bit how they interact with the world around them.
We believe that role-playing games should take place in fantastic worlds. The focus of the game should be on role-playing and having a good time. The core values of #RPGate and any good tabletop group are escapism, not representation, entertainment over activism, and natural, organic inclusion, not forced diversity. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national, nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to the description below for the link to where you can make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. Join us Thursday and Saturday evenings on twitch.tv/Legion of Myth to watch Heathen Dog and his team of dirty casuals play multiplayer games for your mockery and enjoyment. Here on our YouTube channel, you can watch these game-related segments live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Time, or check out the Friday night show stream where our panel of guests opine, comment, and editorialize on the TTRPG hobby as a whole. Please like this video and leave a comment to appease the algorithm gods. Share this video on your favorite social media platforms to help us peer out of the shadows cast over us. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to Legion of Myth for more tabletop RPG goodness.
Okay, first we're going to talk about what the gods are. And this isn't as easy a question to answer as you might think, because your game master, or you, if you are the game master, have to decide how your gods are going to interact with your world. And so, I
have a question about this already. Are you? Where's the power level of gods in the Megaverse? Because they're not the most powerful thing.
No, they're not.
So is that something you're going to talk about?
That's something I'm going to talk about.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But you or your game master have to decide how your gods interact with your world, and that's going to define what they want, what they want to accomplish, what their goals are, and you have to choose how your gods are portrayed. We're going to get into that, but right now we're going to move to that section of what are gods and how do they help me. There we go. And we have...
Can you zoom way in on that?
I'm going to. I'm just going to get the right spot first. Here we go. Defining God. Oh, God. Defining gods. All right. This is your game master's job. This is what your game master has to do before the gods are introduced. How they are going to interact, react, or create action in the world will define who and what they are. And it gives you some examples to start off. Okay. Now, what are deities? Since the origin of humankind, people have tried to understand the world around them. To primitive cultures, it was obvious that the world was at the mercy of powerful, unstable forces beyond their control and often beyond their understanding. The weather might be pleasant one day and turn deadly thunderstorm the next. How do you explain this? Higher power, Mother Nature, whatever. Some kind of intelligence moving the world around you behind the scenes where you can't see. Now, if you want that to be your gods, you can. There's something for that. Or they are, they are just amorphous, powerful things without real drive that just affect randomly the world around you. You could do that too, and that's fine. But here are some examples on what you can do, some general type of gods. The supreme being. The supreme being is God, Allah, whatever. It is an all-powerful being that is at the center of the universe that created everything, and making stats for this creature is useless because it is exactly as powerful as it wants to be. That's it.
That's the way most gods are in my game, because I don't like the idea of gods being mortal.
Okay. And this is the supreme god. This is Zeus. This is Odin. This is Brahma. These are all of the heads of pantheons. They are supreme beings, and in their domain, they are the end-all be-all of existence. All of the lesser gods, all the gods below them, more commonly interact with the world because their interaction wouldn't just break the whole damn place. They are lesser power, but still vastly above mortals and even dragons and whatnot, vastly above that. But something that the player characters can encompass in their minds, can get their brains wrapped around. You
Okay.
can choose that as your deal. That means, by definition, you're never going to meet Zeus. You're never going to meet Thor. You're never going to meet Brahma. You're never going to meet Indra. You're never going to meet all these things because they are so powerful, so incomprehensible that you couldn't really know it was happening when it was. Or you can go another way. They are powerful supernatural beings. Powerful supernatural beings are the type of characters most frequently described in myths and legends. This is like TSR era, or maybe not yet, but what I know of, TSR era Dungeons and Dragons gods. They're these creatures, powerful supernatural creatures that have taken either the responsibility, duty, or for fun aspects of mythology and lore and have personified these things. These are not all powerful beings. They are very powerful beings, but beings that you can comprehend, beings that your brain can encompass. Now, these are like Zeus and Thor and Indra and whatever that you can meet.
So almost like avatars or aspects of humanity to some degree, like the.
But they aren't. They just took the role of.
I got you.
Okay, so they existed before, but now they have taken the role of these things because all gods have all gods in this category have one thing in common. They require worshipers to gather more power. The more worshipers they have, the more powerful they are.
You stole that from Immortal Rules.
Maybe so. I don't. It was probably stolen from Twilight Zone or Simpsons because everything is.
Right.
And then we have just gods. The gods are the chief members of most pantheons. Any godlings or demigods, we're going to talk about that later, generally less powerful and subservient. These gods are very powerful and usually have one or more area of power. These are gods were born because of aspects of reality, created gods into existence. These are not all powerful beings that created the universe, but they are also not just very powerful supernatural creatures that assumed the mantle of these roles. No, aspects of nature were present and gods were born out of that aspect for the sole purpose of managing it. So their duty came before their lives, whereas if they were supernatural creatures, their lives came before their duty. And if they're supreme beings, well, life and duty were the same thing because they created all life and therefore they have all responsibility. So this right here is a lot of what modern day type thing, I would say, thinking of gods are. Gods were created because of nature, because it exists. Gods were born from that primordial soup. Then they are now in charge of the thunder, the lightning, the wind, the sun, the moon, whatever. They were born to do that. So they didn't exist before the universe existed. They existed afterward.
Okay.
And then we move on to things like godlings. These are godlings and demigods. I'm going to get more into them later on because they are racial character classes that are optional in this game. But godlings are newly born gods. Now, how does that work? Well, it depends on what the game master has decided his world is going to treat gods as: supreme being, gods, supernatural beings that assume the role of gods. That's what's going to define the backstory of godlings. They are either supernatural beings who were born of other supernatural beings who are the aspect of wind or sun or fire on this world, and they just take up the family business. That could be it. Or the world is getting more complex, more newer gods spontaneously generated because there's a new aspect. For example, god of electricity, god of energy, god of spacefarers. That's not going to exist in a primitive society, but it will have a necessary function in a society that travels in space.
All I can think about is All right, welcome aboard, kid. Heathen dogs are super fire, so don't get in any trouble, and he'll teach you the ways of being a god.
There you go. There you go. And if you like Terry Pratchett Discworld, there is a god called Anoia. She is the god of drawers getting stuck halfway open. Now, is that a minor godling? Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know. That's a pretty important power that I think frustrates the crap out of a lot of people.
It depends. But before drawers existed, neither did Anoia. Or she existed in another form and she morphed due to the needs of the times. That's like godlings. And then there's demigods. Demigods are half god and half mortal. They're much weaker than godlings or gods because they're not born truly immortal, but they have aspects of both worlds. You know, they have the powers of both their parents. And so they can do unique things like fight against the gods and not be instantly struck because they're family, or fight for the people but not ruin the world because they're just not that powerful. Even at their full force, they can't crush a continent. So they get to do things that gods don't. And then we go to minions of the gods. These are creatures who were either adopted by gods as their essential workers or primary minions or whatever, or the gods actually created this life to serve them and their ideals. Depending on how your game master decided gods came about, will answer this question. If they are just
I got to ask this question. You're talking about gods and so forth, and I'm not trying to derail or change the subject, but this is a Rifts conversion book.
Yes.
So this is about playing these things, or is this about, like, specifically, what is the point of a conversion book for gods?
Because gods don't just exist on Rifts. They also exist in Beyond the Supernatural. They also exist in Nightbane. They also exist in Palladium Fantasy. They also exist in Heroes Unlimited in one form or another. This book converts each god to MDC or SDC environment. So you're not limited in how you use them or where you use them. That's why it's called a conversion book.
So this is more for NPC type stuff.
Yes, gods are NPCs. I'm sorry I didn't stress that. I thought it was a given. But no, you cannot play.
Well, it's Rifts we're talking about, so you never know.
Rifts we're talking about, but as I get into the how to use gods, how to play them in your campaign, letting your player characters be Thor or Hermes is not a good plan. It's a plan to destroy your campaign.
What if somebody's a dragon?
Gods and dragons are little pieces of crap. They're like children to gods. It's not even close.
Gotcha. All right.
It's not even close. All right. So those are minions of a god or a pantheon. I'm going to give an example later on of Asgardian dwarves or Asgardian elves. These are dwarves and elves, but long ago they were taken into the beautiful bosom of their pantheon, and they were given preferential treatment for their subservience. And the preferential treatment is they're a lot better in most ways than regular dwarves and regular elves because they've had God on their side for countless generations. Those are your minion races. And pantheons of light and darkness. This is a generic term for good gods and evil gods. Most pantheons have good and evil gods in them. And for the most part, the good gods band together against the evil gods of their own pantheon, and they constantly have a struggle. That's where the player characters come in. The struggle between the gods. That's the only way you can fight in a war of this magnitude. You can't fight the gods themselves. That's stupid. You're going to get crushed like an ant. But if you can bring a god's machinations on earth to a grinding halt, even for a second, that is a victory worthy of song for generations to come. You could possibly do that for your pantheon of light or your pantheon of darkness. You can do that. That is the only victory that you can accomplish, and it is basically an end goal of a campaign.
Sorry.
I'm not going to get an alien intelligence. That's dumb.
So,
Now, if
but alien intelligences are more powerful than gods for the most part, right?
generally, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Generally, yes. Now, you can, if you want, use real world precedent in your game. Now, Kevin and company, when they make all these books, they did exhaustive research. Now, is it all correct all the time? No, because myth is just that. It's stories that people tell, and they can vary from region to region in the same area.
And it
But
has to fit a game.
What's that?
And it has to fit a game.
Yeah, and it has to fit in the game. There's a lot of onion layers that are just not only unnecessary to play a role-playing game, but can actually bog down gameplay to the point of making it unplayable. So if you think that these gods lack the depth of their true myth, it's because of that. It would not be playable if they had all the aspects they have in the real life myth. But if you want, you can inject more real life myth into it to make it more appropriate. Now, this might work if you have, say, a single Pantheon game, like your game is based in ancient Greece. So the Greek gods are the only gods at the table. You can give the Greek Pantheon more depth because you don't have to worry about anybody else's Pantheon. You can do that and make it doable. Just don't go overboard. That's my thing. Don't go overboard. That's fine. So right there is what gods are. Now, a lot of it is up to your game master, how the gods work, where they come from, and what they do is based on the game master's decision on how they were created, how they think, how they react to people, how they use people, and then it all flows down from there. Hopefully this book gave you enough choices so you can make that decision for your table and have it be a workable one. There's not going to be a right one. Get that out of your head. When you're talking about religion, everyone's wrong and no one's right. That's basically it. So you're going to have to do the best you can. Just make sure it's playable and doesn't slow down your game to a crawl, and then you're right enough. So let's look at some.
Can you show the table of contents, or I'd like to see the list of gods, just to show what this book gives in and of itself for the list of pantheons or gods.
Okay,
that's it, and then I'll put the super chat up there.
Okay, we are looking at Aztec, Babylonian, Greek, and Roman because they toward the end were very, very similar. Indian, Norse, Persian, and that's it.
Okay.
So I mean, there are a lot of gods.
Main ones throughout history.
Yeah. Very, very gods of areas or cultures that have had grand influence on the world. That's what's introduced in this book. And okay. I get it. You know, you have to cut for time, right? I mean, there's so much myth in this world that you got to do something. You got to cut somewhere. And that's what they did.
My Teutonic gods aren't in there.
Yeah, you're right.
Weird Guys 564 for $2. Thank you for the $2. Weird Guy says, which god gives you 52 virgins when you die? It's supposed to be 72.
It would have to be Persian god somewhere. Probably. Although the only one who would promise that would be Ahriman, and he's probably lying. So nobody.
Okay. So got a few things started here. Let's go back to the beginning. I don't remember now. Did you guys do Dragons and Gods from Palladium? No, we have not.
No, we did not. Not from Palladium Fantasy, no. But
Heathen Dog has talked about doing some Palladium Fantasy books on occasion. I don't think he's told me which ones they are, but that is one that's been requested a lot over time. So maybe that can be on the list. I don't know. But I think we have ideas to do more Palladium Fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Walter MC, a demigod PC can be relatively weak sauce, or it can be truly overpowered, depending on how you build it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because that is our next segment is going to be the RCCs introduced in this book, and one of them is the demigod, and it's stronger than you think. Okay. Stronger than demigod versus dragon hatchling. I would say that's a toss up. That is a toss-up. I would lean toward the demigod, but it could go the other way. That they are not weak sauce, not in my opinion.
Okay.
This book is
Weird guy.
mostly about the gods of the Palladium fantasy world. No, it is not. It is gods of our world, the real world, based on the real world myths that can be transferred to any Palladium game anywhere. That's the purpose of this book. Create gods that people can wrap their head around because they've heard about them as they were growing up or as an adult. So it's some attachment of awareness you can hang on to and understand what's going on around you. That's why Kevin, I imagine that's why Kevin chose real world mythos and pantheon rather than making his own, because it's easier for people to digest and understand.
What does it mean up there? I'm looking at your page. So it says Dark Olympus, imposters, Jupiter, evil, imposter.
Well, think about it this way. When magic left the earth, God's influence on the gods, the various gods' influences on the earth diminished. And that's a power vacuum. And the power vacuum was filled sometimes by people who weren't gods, but were very powerful beings, like true dragons and stuff like that, and are masquerading as gods for influence and clout.
So Jupiter isn't Jupiter?
No, Jupiter's a fake.
Oh.
Pluto's
Cool.
a fake.
Or Romans. So all the Roman gods, so the Greek gods are real and the Roman gods are fake. I see how it is. Racist.
The Greek and Roman gods are the same.
Yeah, well, it's because the Romans took them. Yeah, but yeah.
Exactly. The Romans took them just like, Christianity took a lot of pagan religions, but that's what happened.
If something is an actual god in a setting, then I personally prefer for it to be all powerful on its own. I agree with that. Without the need for worshippers. So the gods can only acquire worshippers for personal reasons. I don't.
Well, again, it's up to your game master. If your game master chose the supreme being option at the center of the universe, then yes, the supreme being and the gods it spawns does not require worshippers and doesn't really affect the world directly because they can't. They're way too strong. Any singular action would cause a calamity. It actually says in the book that gods fighting each other on a prime material plane like Earth or Palladium fantasy, whatever, who are actually fighting each other can cause a cataclysm. So yeah, they don't do it a lot because it murders everyone around them. It's so damaging.
And to me, that's the way they should be represented as well. I don't like worrying about numbers. Like, okay, if you have 10,000 subscribers, wow. If you have 10,000 followers, you're this powerful. If you have 1 million followers, you're that powerful. But I do like the concept, that hey, they want to get more. That theoretically they get more powerful as they get more followers.
They actually do. That's exactly right.
I just don't want to count the numbers. How many ducats do I have today?
And they don't count numbers here. Palladium does not count the numbers. Good. It says to manifest on the world, they have to have so many followers, usually in the thousands, but didn't give a number. But they are weakened because the faith of their followers is not strong enough to manifest their true being. But with enough followers, and they don't specify how many's enough, they can manifest as their true power on the earth. So it's up to the game master what those numbers are.
At what point does an alien intelligence intersect with or become a deity? And the alien intelligences have cults that worship them. Is it dependent on the number of their worshippers?
No. An alien intelligence and a god are two distinctly different species. They make that abundantly clear. Now, there is precedent for an alien intelligence becoming a god through a major spell of change, but there's no precedent for a god becoming an alien intelligence.
Isn't that a downstep for the alien intelligence?
It depends. The only upside of being a god is that you are truly immortal. An alien intelligence, except for the great old ones, the first beings to ever have intelligence in the multiverse, you have a time limit. You age and you die. That's it. Gods.
It's tens of thousands of years, though, right?
Yo, it's 100. It could be 50 to 100, 50 to 250,000 years. But
Okay.
gods is like 500,000 years plus.
Okay.
Gods don't die. Godlings, godlings, the weakest of beings that can be called gods live about as long as a Splugorth alien intelligence does.
Okay. And then the last week's where we did the super chat. Does the book have a path to godhood, like a
No.
sorcerer, king progressing to a god emperor, or like Cyric taking over the mantle of Merkel, Ball, and Bane?
Whatever. No. No. There is no path for that. If you're not a god or you don't have blood of a god in you already, sorry, you're locked out.
This game sucks. I quit.
Yeah. You could pretend, like Jupiter over here. You could pretend to be a god, but you're not.
Well, you know what? As long as I can have the illusion of being a god and they still worship me, I'll still feel better about it.
You'll still get the feels and such. Okay, fine. Good for you. Good for
All
you,
right.
buddy.
So, what are you talking about in the next book? RCCs, you said? The god character classes?
In the next video, we're going to go over the RCCs introduced in this book. Some of them are either newly formed gods or half gods. Others are races that have been protected and nurtured by gods for several generations and have changed because of it.
Okay. I'll hope to see everybody then. Like, subscribe, and share.